My husband started waking up at exactly 2:13 a.m. every night. At first, I thought it was stress. Then I thought maybe it was work, but eventually I realized something much worse. He wasn't just waking up, he was crying. Before I tell you why I stood outside our bathroom door listening to my husband silently break apart, before I explain the sentence that completely changed the way I saw our marriage, I need you to do something small first. If you've ever loved someone who hid their pain behind silence, if you've ever realized the person sleeping beside you was suffering without you noticing, subscribe to this channel, because the quiet stories are always the hardest to forget. The first time I heard him crying, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Daniel had always been calm, steady, controlled, the kind of man who apologized when he got emotional during movies. So hearing those sounds in the middle of the night felt impossible, soft, quiet, broken. I opened my eyes slowly and realized his side of the bed was empty. The bathroom light underneath the door glowed faintly across the hallway. And then I heard it again, a shaky breath, like someone trying desperately not to fall apart. I sat up immediately. My chest suddenly felt tight. For almost 30 seconds, I just listened. Then everything went silent. A minute later, Daniel walked back into the bedroom, pretending nothing happened. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." And because I loved him, I let him lie. That became our routine. Every night around 2 a.m., the bed shifted, the bathroom light turned on, the silence started, and every morning Daniel acted completely normal. Too normal. He still kissed my forehead before work, still made coffee, still smiled politely, but something about him felt distant now. Like part of him was slowly disappearing somewhere I couldn't follow. One Friday evening, his younger sister Emma came over unexpectedly. Emma was loud, warm, the kind of person who noticed emotions immediately. The second she saw Daniel, her smile faded slightly. "You look exhausted," she told him. Daniel laughed softly. "Just work." But Emma didn't look convinced, and somehow that terrified me, because until someone else noticed something was wrong, I had still been pretending this was temporary. Dinner that night felt strange. Daniel barely touched his food. Every few minutes, he drifted somewhere mentally. At one point, Emma looked at me carefully across the table, and I knew she saw it too. The distance, the exhaustion, the sadness Daniel kept trying to hide. Around midnight, Daniel suddenly stood up. "I'm tired," he whispered. There was that word again. Tired. He disappeared upstairs without even finishing his dinner. Emma stayed behind helping me clean the kitchen. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then quietly she asked, "How long has this been happening?" I froze instantly, because suddenly the thing we had both been avoiding became real. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Emma looked down at the sink. "He's been crying again, hasn't he?" And in that moment, my entire body went cold. I stared at Emma so hard it actually hurt, because there was only one way she could know that. This wasn't new. "How do you know?" I whispered. Emma stayed silent for a few seconds. Then finally she sighed. "He used to do this when we were kids." Something about the way she said it made my stomach drop instantly. Used to? As if whatever Daniel was carrying now had followed him his entire life. I leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to steady my breathing. "He won't talk to me," I admitted quietly. Emma nodded slowly. "He probably thinks he's protecting you." Protecting me? That sentence replayed inside my head all night. Because people don't realize this about pain. Sometimes the people suffering the most become experts at hiding it. At 2:13 a.m., the bed shifted again. Daniel got up carefully, thinking I was asleep. This time, I followed him. The bathroom door closed softly. Then silence. Then crying. Real crying. The kind someone makes when they believe nobody can hear them. And suddenly, tears filled my own eyes. Because hearing the person you love break apart in secret changes something inside you forever. I touched the bathroom door gently. "Daniel." Everything stopped instantly. No movement, no breathing, nothing. Then finally his voice came through the door. "I'm okay." But his voice cracked so badly on the last word that it almost broke me. "Please open the door." A long silence followed. Then slowly, I heard the lock click. When the door opened, my heart shattered. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking, and he looked embarrassed, not angry, ashamed, like being seen this vulnerable hurt him more than whatever caused the tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered immediately. Sorry, as if crying was something he needed forgiveness for. I grabbed his hand carefully. "You don't have to hide this from me." Daniel looked away instantly. "Yes, I do." That answer scared me more than anything else. We sat on the bathroom floor for almost 20 minutes before he finally spoke again. "I don't feel like myself anymore." And hearing those words changed everything, because suddenly this wasn't stress. This wasn't exhaustion. This was someone drowning silently. Daniel explained that for almost a year, he'd been waking up every night with panic attacks, pressure from work, fear of failing, the constant feeling that he was disappointing everyone around him. But the worst part? He whispered. He looked directly at me for the first time all night. I started feeling invisible inside my own life. That sentence stayed inside my chest like glass. Because loneliness hits differently when it comes from someone sleeping beside you every night. The next morning, Daniel pretended the conversation never happened. That scared me, because people who suffer silently often return to pretending the second the vulnerable moment passes. He still smiled, still made coffee, still kissed my forehead before work, but now I noticed something different. Exhaustion. Real exhaustion. The kind no amount of sleep fixes. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, replaying everything from the night before. I started feeling invisible inside my own life. How long had he been carrying that feeling? How long had I missed it? That afternoon, Emma texted me, "You should check on him today." I stared at the message for a while, then finally replied, "What if he shuts me out again?" 3 dots appeared. Then she sent, "Then keep knocking." That sentence stayed with me, because relationships don't usually die from one giant betrayal. They die slowly, one ignored conversation at a time, one lonely night at a time. One moment where someone needed help but didn't know how to ask. That evening, Daniel came home late carrying takeout, and for the first time in months, I really looked at him. The tired eyes, the forced smile, the way he moved like someone carrying invisible weight. We ate dinner mostly in silence. Then finally I asked, "When was the last time you felt happy?" Daniel froze, completely froze, like nobody had asked him something real in a very long time. He looked down at his food quietly. "I don't know," he whispered, and hearing that nearly destroyed me, because the saddest people often stop noticing how unhappy they've become. That night we stayed awake talking until almost sunrise. Not perfectly. Honestly, Daniel admitted he felt like he was failing at everything. Work, marriage, life. "I wake up every day already exhausted," he whispered, "and I don't know how to fix myself anymore." I grabbed his hand tightly. "You don't have to fix yourself alone." The second I said those words, he started crying again, but this time he didn't hide it. And honestly, that mattered more than anything else. Over the next few weeks, something slowly changed between us. Not magically, not perfectly, but honestly, Daniel started talking more, really talking, about fear, anxiety, pressure, the loneliness he'd been hiding for years. And little by little, I realized something painful. I had noticed he was distant, but I never stopped long enough to understand why. I kept waiting for him to explain his pain clearly. But pain doesn't always know how to explain itself. Sometimes it hides, sometimes it waits quietly, hoping someone notices. One night while we sat together on the couch, Daniel suddenly whispered, "I thought if you saw how broken I felt, you'd stop loving me." I turned toward him immediately, and honestly, nothing anyone has ever said to me hurt more than that. Because while he spent months suffering silently beside me, he genuinely believed he had to do it alone. I moved closer, carefully. "You never had to protect me from your pain," I whispered. Daniel looked down quietly, then finally admitted something I'll never forget. "I didn't think anyone would stay if they saw how bad things got inside my head." And suddenly I understood why he cried in secret. Not because he was weak, because he was terrified. Terrified of becoming a burden. Terrified of being seen differently. Terrified that vulnerability would make him harder to love. But real love doesn't disappear when someone breaks. Real love stays. That night we sat together in silence for almost an hour. But for the first time in a long time, that silence didn't feel lonely. It felt safe. Healing didn't happen overnight after that. Some nights were still hard. Some mornings still felt heavy. But something important returned. Effort. And honestly, that's where relationships survive. Not through perfection. Through honesty. So if someone you love has been quieter lately, check on them. Not casually, not quickly. Really check on them. Because sometimes the strongest people cry where nobody can hear them. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe. Because the quiet stories are always the ones people remember. A month later, I woke up at 2:13 a.m. again. For half a second, panic shot through me. I reached toward Daniel's side of the bed, expecting emptiness. But this time, he was still there, awake, staring at the ceiling. I turned toward him slowly. "You okay?" I whispered. Daniel stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then finally he nodded. "Yeah," he whispered. Then after a pause, he added, "Just having a rough night." And strangely enough, hearing him admit that felt like progress. Because healing doesn't mean pain disappears. Sometimes healing simply means someone stops suffering alone. I moved closer beside him, and for the first time in almost a year, he reached for my hand first. We stayed awake talking quietly until sunrise. About childhood childhood, about fear, about all the emotions people spend years pretending not to feel. And somewhere during that conversation, I realized something important. Love isn't just supporting someone during their strongest moments. It's staying during their weakest ones too. A few weeks later, Daniel finally started therapy. The morning of his first appointment, he looked terrified. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to say," he admitted nervously. I smiled softly. "The truth," I whispered. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, thinking about how close we came to losing each other. Not because of cheating, not because of betrayal, because of silence. Because two people can love each other deeply and still slowly drift apart when pain stays hidden too long. That realization haunted me, because how many relationships end without anyone understanding what actually happened? How many people suffer quietly while the world keeps expecting them to smile normally? That night, Daniel came home looking lighter somehow. Still tired, still emotional, but lighter. We ate dinner together without phones for the first time in months. And somewhere in the middle of a random conversation about absolutely nothing important, Daniel laughed. A real laugh. Not forced, not polite, real. And hearing that sound almost made me cry. Because I realized how long it had been since happiness existed naturally inside our home. Around midnight, we sat together on the couch in complete silence. Then quietly, Daniel asked, "Why did you keep trying?" I looked at him carefully. "What do you mean?" He swallowed hard before answering. "Most people get tired of someone like me eventually." That sentence broke my heart all over again. Because depression convinces people they're difficult to love. I grabbed his hand gently. "You were never hard to love," I whispered. "You were just hurting." And suddenly, tears filled his eyes again. But this time, he didn't hide them. 6 months later, things still weren't perfect, but they were real. And honestly, real mattered more. Daniel still had difficult nights, still woke up anxious sometimes, still carried invisible scars. But now he talked. Now he let himself be seen. And little by little, our home stopped feeling heavy. One evening, Emma came over for dinner again. The second Daniel opened the door, she noticed the difference immediately. "You look better," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "I think I finally stopped pretending I'm okay all the time." Emma looked at me quietly after that, and in that moment, we both understood something important. Sometimes saving a relationship doesn't require huge, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it starts with one honest conversation at 2 a.m. Later that night after Emma left, Daniel and I sat together in the living room with all the lights off except one lamp near the couch. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and for the first time in forever, peace existed inside our home. Daniel looked at me carefully. "You know what scares me the most?" he whispered. "What?" He looked down at his hands. That I almost convinced myself nobody would notice if I disappeared emotionally. My chest tightened instantly, because people think emotional pain always looks dramatic. But usually, it looks quiet, like someone smiling while slowly giving up inside. I leaned my head against his shoulder. "I noticed," I whispered. Daniel closed his eyes for a second, then softly replied, "Yeah, you did." And honestly, that might have been the moment our marriage truly started healing. Not because all the pain disappeared, but because neither of us were hiding anymore. So if you're listening to this while thinking about someone who seems distant lately, reach out, stay a little longer. Ask one more question, because sometimes people cry silently for months while hoping someone notices. And if this story stayed with you even for a moment, subscribe, because the quiet stories are always the ones people carry with them the longest.